afternoon. I'm Mei-Yen Ireland. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's session, Innovating by and for. I particularly want to commend you because I know we are programmed against Common, and you made the right choice, although I do love Common. And also, if you didn't know that, you're not allowed to leave. So anyway, just setting the stage there. So this afternoon's conversation, I'm really honored to be sharing the stage with three powerhouse leaders in this field. So get your old school pen or your AI wearable pens ready because they're about to drop a lot of wisdom here on this topic. We have Dr. Shmona Simpson from Paritii, Dr. Lisa Herring from the PROPEL Center, and Ed Smith-Lewis, soon to be Dr. Ed Smith-Lewis, from UNCF. When we started preparing for this panel, one of the panelists, I think it was Shmona, said, "Are we gonna have a real conversation about this?" And we decided as a group, yes, we were gonna have a real conversation about this topic. And in particular, when you looked at all the sessions out there, we see a lot with equity in the title and equity-centered design in the title, and I even put that in our title. But in today's session, we really want to go beyond tinkering around the edges of product development and innovation in terms of, how do we do more user-centered focus groups. We're talking about how do we change the flow of resources and power in who is designing and leading that innovation and benefiting from that innovation. And so that's what we're gonna unpack here today. So to get us started, I'm gonna have each of the panelists, we'll go one by one. I want them to open up with a provocative statement about their vision for the future of ed tech when done by and for communities of color. So Shmona, kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Great to be with you all today. I'm going to say my statement is not provocative. So my statement's not provocative because we are in a system where things that should be feel provocative, but they're not. They just should be. And I think the world I envision when ed tech development is done by and for, it's a world where every use case, right, use cases surfaced by all of us are not overlooked for technology, number one. And there is a workforce that's representative of this country that's able to innovate in ed tech and bring solutions for communities. And lastly, it's a world where we measure the efficacy by and for communities of color regarding the products that we're all using.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Herring, president of the PROPEL Center. Historically Black, futuristically focused, innovatively impacted. Historically Black, futuristically focused, innovatively impacted. That's what stood in my brain when this question was like, what's that statement? The PROPEL Center interfaces and exists as an innovation tech hub that unapologetically serves HBCUs across the country. And we have the good fortune of serving nearly 80 of them out of the 104. Over 330,000 students represent the HBCU ecosystem. So when we talk about AI, innovation, technology, and where our students thrive and where they are not just consumers but creators, historically Black, futuristically focused, innovatively impacted.
I love that. It's a hard question, partially because to imagine it, you sometimes have to believe it. And I'll tell you, sometimes I'm a bit of a cynic, but I fundamentally believe in sort of the origination of this country, that there's an opportunity for liberty and justice for all. And for me, ed tech has an opportunity when it is done by and for all communities to live up to that. Ed tech can remove geographical barriers that have held people who just so happened to grow up in the wrong zip code, to live lives of power, of opportunity, and ultimately wealth. It has the potential to remove societal challenges that limited opportunities because of who you knew or how you knew them or what you happened to look like. And perhaps most importantly, it has the power to reduce the cost of access to those opportunities and perhaps even build wealth in a way that people who have been historically looking for opportunities with their hand out can fulfill opportunities because they have the resources themselves to do it for themselves.
Great, yes. And so, Shmona, like setting the context for us on what does it really mean to develop by and for, and what does good look like?
Sure. I'm happy to share what we do because this is what we believe is the right way to do it. So we, as a business who are focused on social impact consulting and being tech forward and bringing innovation for our clients, work in deep partnership in a research phase to understand pain points, to understand use cases, to actually have the community surface what exactly the needs are that we can respond to the call. We are not coming in with our own agenda or our own perspectives around what is needed, but rather undertaking a process of listening. That's number one. And then we do very straightforward co-design processes. So my entire team is equity first in their thinking. They are committed to this mission, and they are now going to be co-designing and building and collaborating with the ultimate end users of the products. So they are, our end users, our institutions are coming in at the development level. They are participating in the design. We are doing transfer of understanding around like artificial intelligence and how to build so that we're all co-learning and developing skills and resources along the way. And then lastly, like they are going to be our first adopters and first engagers of the product. And we know this is successful because they share the word around like, okay, this product is working for us. We don't have to do anything to kind of grow our market and scale. It scales by itself because our communities are active and they talk and they will move like, hey, you know, this product is really working over here. How about you try it? And so we are able to open up a market where, you know, these use cases are overlooked and people are actually able to benefit from the solutions that are deployed, and they are scaling by themselves because our community are active participants in the growth and scale of EdTech products. And so I think that this process is really how we do it. And then lastly, how we measure it, right, is that it's coming from the community. They are setting the metrics, they're setting the standards by which we understand, okay, have we been effective with this product? And is it fit for purpose? And is it meeting needs? And so I think that that's the world we imagine that co-design looks like today, but hopefully, you know, tomorrow it is different, right? It is like the people who we've just worked with are going to be developing and engaging for themselves, right? And we as a company are not coming in, but rather they are generating the ideas, use cases, and solving the problems for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And so Lisa and Ed, you know, bringing that into the HBCU context, like how can by and for really transform the experience for HBCUs?
Well, for me, it's a deep reflection of what we've been able to do within the PROPEL Center. So the PROPEL Center was launched in 2020. In its existence, what we've been able to do is to meet our students at their space of exploration once they're inside our HBCUs. So first and foremost, a little bit more about PROPEL. As an innovation tech hub, we provide opportunities for students to have deeper exposure to several areas of technology: AI, ML, cybersecurity, health innovation, coding, et cetera, and entrepreneurship, and many others. But we do that with the partnership of Apple, who's one of our founding funders, as well as Southern Company. What we believe in our model is that we first and foremost allow students to learn more through Connect Stories, where they can not only see themselves through others who have secured or established careers in fields that they are considering, but we also partner with subject matter experts to help curate and develop and co-design with students along their journey within their HBCU to identify where their space and place is. That's important. We are not only helping to shape their narrative, but we are reshaping their trajectory. That's what I think is the most essential and unique part of our work. We do that in several ways. Number one, our PROPEL Learn app, the platform where we currently have approximately 3,000 students engaged, where they're able to secure micro-credentials and badging. But the very first one is discovering your professional superpowers. That course, a virtual offering, is the opportunity for students to take a deeper dive into where they are, who they are, and where they think they would want to go in the areas of technology. And it really goes back to what I named earlier, right? It is being futuristically focused and innovatively impacted. For what we've discovered is that many of our students have a sense of where they'd like to go, but they are not sure about what that journey looks like beyond many of our majors that might be liberal arts or even in the sciences. And in this day and age, we also have to own, but especially in our HBCU ecosystem, that we're preparing our scholars for careers that some of us might not even be able to name today, but their experiences and their connections and the apprenticeships and internships help to develop that. So it's walking alongside the student with that journey. But it's also faculty development, helping to stand up faculty in the areas of innovation. And we've spent a lot of time discussing how do we reimagine the post-secondary classroom. And you don't have to have an area of discipline that is necessarily technologically defined, but you might benefit deeply from the skills that accelerate you in how you interface with your students. And we have found that our HBCU leaders, our presidents and provosts, et cetera, embrace and accept that as an opportunity to impact what's happening every day. I think it's also important to name that two things exist at the same time. This deep sense of urgency to get us upskilled, whether you are a student or a faculty member or the institution in and of itself, while also knowing that it doesn't just happen overnight. So balancing urgency with a very curated process and intentional investors and intentional journeys, platforms, accelerators, et cetera, that help to build capacity in students and staff, by design and default, help impact the HBCU community.
I appreciate that and super excited by the vision and the work of PROPEL. I think when I hear the question, Mei-Yen, I sort of struggle because then I sort of look at the field and I say, well, where is sort of by and for happening? Mm-hmm. And I struggle a bit to identify where it has happened in a way that I could actually answer the question that, oh, it can support the HBCU experience in this way. I think there are a lot of things in the works, perhaps now more than ever, definitely not enough, so necessary but not sufficient in terms of the work that's happening in the space. But if you maybe go outside of the HBCU realm for a second and you say, well, how has innovation, how has tech sort of galvanized or empowered a community? I would say some of the biggest users of our tech innovation are the students and families and communities that HBCUs have explicitly served for the entirety of their population, the entirety of their existence. But that population is primarily net digesters of content and information as opposed to producers and or innovators in it of themselves. And so I don't know necessarily where the answer is. I can hypothesize on where it could be. And it starts with sort of a mission orientation to be by and for from the beginning in the way that PROPEL has at the United Negro College Fund, where I have the opportunity to lead a group called the Institute for Capacity Building. We've been very intentional with a product you might be able to read from afar called HBCUV, where we've said to our institutions, there are a lot of tech solutions out there. If we were to reimagine how we use them for HBCUs the institution, administrators, faculty, and their students, and perhaps even the communities that they serve, how would we do it differently? And what we realized, particularly in the online learning space, is that the opportunity outside the teaching and learning time, those 3 hours you spend in the day, are just as important, if not more important, to the students that we serve. And so we immediately said, well, how do you append to a Canvas instance the opportunity to engage beyond that time? Because for the majority of our students, 75% low income, 60% first generation, if they're learning online, when they close that laptop, they go back to a world that they were hoping to escape. And to be on an HBCU campus is to be in a bubble that has allowed you not only to escape that lived existence, but to be in one that's nurturing, empowering, opportunity presenting. And in an online or an ed tech space, we don't really see that. And so when the dust settled and we said, well, what did we create? At the end of it, what we realized is we not only reimagined how disparate solutions could integrate. So how do we get partners in the ed tech space to see each other as interdependent opportunities along a student journey? But we also realized we created something that's way more fun, a little bit more interesting, looks good, and caters to the needs of the students in a fundamentally different way. And so when I think about how ed tech could support HBCUs, I would actually flip that question and say, the reality is, if you look at the unique role that HBCUs have played in our history and the disproportionate outcomes they have for our student populations, HBCUs, if you partner with them, probably could help you.
Absolutely. I want to welcome Dr. Gabriella Waters to the stage from Morgan State University. And before I put Dr. Waters on the spot, I'll let her just kind of warm up a little bit. Oh, you're very warm. Oh, drop in then. Yes. Tell us about your vision for ed tech with by and for centered.
So we would start with this hotel journey that I've just gone on to get to the stage.
It's a good place to start, Dr. Waters. Mm-hmm.
But for my vision as far as AI, and I'm an ML researcher and AI researcher, I'm a theoretical researcher, so I'm always asking what if, and then trying to come up with an answer. So my answer may seem a little bit out there because I'm not looking at what's here now, I'm looking at what's to come. And for me, AI, in terms of ed tech, needs to be dynamically responsive. AI is kind of like assistive technology right now. You have to work within its boundaries. It doesn't acquiesce to you. And so I'm looking for AI to be more responsive to the individual in front of it. When the creators of the enterprise, for those of you who are not Trekkies, shame on you. When the creators, the set designers, developed all of the touch panels on the enterprise, they said that they were designed so that whoever sat down would have a customized experience. That is what I'm looking for the future of AI and ed tech.
Beautiful. Awesome. Got a lot of mm-hms in the audience and up here for that. So, as we think about, what Ed shared in terms of what you were able to create when centering the work by the communities that are benefiting from the technology, one of the things that I'm struck with in looking out at this audience is actually this audience doesn't look like the majority of the audience that I see hanging out in the lobbies where, frankly, it's a lot of white men. Mm-hmm. And we've got a room here that I think looks more reflective, but is not reflective of the broader ASU+GSV community. And so when we think about how do we actually change the flow of the resources and the power in order to bring the communities, again, who really have the insights to do the innovative work, what does that look like? How do we flip this? How do we change the landscape? And anyone can start.
So I think it's a value proposition to start with. as I see the microphone slowly rising to everyone's mouth.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Waters. Yeah.
It's about, there's this misconception among humanity in general. I'm a cognitive scientist, so I'm a people person. So I understand AI systems and all of that, but I'm human factors lady first, so I throw everyone for a loop. So throughout humanity, there's this thing among us where we think that each of our communities, our groups, our association are closed off from the rest of the world. The Earth is a closed ecosystem. All the air that's on this planet is going to be inhaled by you and exhaled by you and by your children and by your grandchildren and by your great-grandchildren and so on and so forth. The same water the dinosaurs took a drink from, we are brushing our teeth with. Closed ecosystem. So if you impact one area, you impact the entire thing. And that's the issue at hand with these technologies and the way they're approached, is that there's this understanding that you can wall off experiences and outcomes to just this gated garden community that's bespoke. How's that working out for us? AI doesn't know what a border is. So when you look at a technology like that, you have to understand that there is no cultural line in the sand that this technology is going to respect. There is no border that you can draw that says, okay, only up to this border can we have AI and machine learning. So I think you have to change the value proposition of what it means for community and what it means for impact and what it means for measuring outcomes and context and all of these things, and be intentional about how you deploy these solutions, not just in the identification of the problem. And then I'll let everyone else talk.
So I'd like to compliment Dr. Waters' statement around that intentionality to how we deploy, and compliment it, because I agree. And then it just adds to that, you know, we all paused when you asked the question. My first thought, having had a career in K-12, we start late. We are reactive more than we are proactive. And then who am I referring to when I say we? Am I referring to corporate America? Am I referring to those who are the scientists who are in rooms that may be homogeneous and there's not a diverse room, where we're thinking about who are the current creators of AI and then who are the consumers? And so why are we making decisions after the fact as opposed to thinking about how do we onboard and bring on potential workforce development employees in advance, versus because there's been a protest or because there's been a reaction. Mm-hmm. So my first thought is to be more proactive than reactive, not thinking about this, the collective we, after there's already been the elimination of jobs and positions that we all should have on our radar will expire or become extinct because of the world that we currently live in. That was one piece. And then I was thinking about how we triage and problem solve when we are interventionists in education. And this is a problem that not only is it a reactive, oftentimes a reactive way to come to a solution, but then thinking early on also means before students are in post-secondary. But even if we catch them before they graduate, how do we invite them into our corporate fields or our nonprofit fields or these experiences before they leave their institutions? Those were my thoughts to complement that.
So thanks, Mei-Yen. If I understand your question, you're thinking like, what would it take, right, for us to actually realize this future? And I'm going to say something that might be slightly uncomfortable. I feel like Ed might back me up, so go ahead.
I'm ready.
All right. So basically, I actually think the beginning of it is asking some uncomfortable questions. I think I'm not going to really speak to education, but the system that we are all operating in, and actually the supremacy culture, the valuing of some cultures, context, and even what is fact, fiction, and truth of the one group over another. And until we actually begin to interrogate, right, like at a system level, like how this came to be and why we want to continue to perpetuate it very clearly being that it is not working for 99% of us, even though, those who are in power actually still do suffer, right, in the system that has been made here. And so the question is, like, why we do this and why we believe that some people being allowed to innovate at scale and being allowed to be the knowledge bearers and those who create, and some of us have to consume and hew wood and draw water. Like, those questions, I think we probably want to actually interrogate at a societal level. And then after that, if we were able to get there, can we envision a world where all of us have access to the ability to create and innovate at scale, and that we believe that the innovations of all of us are worthy to be scaled. And that is probably what needs to be an enabling condition for us to really realize the work that we're talking about, where the products can not just serve our communities, but everybody, right? And that we are able to scale, monetize, and generate that equitable value from the innovation that is coming from HBCUs and other minorities in this country.
I second all of this. I lead a team of about 30 individuals dedicated to something we call racial justice equity. What do we mean by that? Is that we have to call out that explicitly who we want to serve and what outcomes we want for those communities. But we can't just focus on what happens today. We have to look at what got us here. So when we say justice, it's about solving for the challenges and the systems that got us to this point, because they're legitimately designed to do exactly what they've done. And I tell my team, and they'll ask me all the time, and I might get in trouble for this because HR told me to stop it. But I'm just gonna say it because, Mei-Yen, you asked about the people in the hallway, but I'd rather talk to the people in the room to say, what do you need to do? And I have 3 things. It's be witty, be messy, and be petty. What do I mean by that? In order to be witty, you often have to be the smartest person in the room. You have to understand the nuances, the historical, the contemporary. You have to understand what people are coming, how they are coming to that room, what their questions are, what their beliefs are, and you have to be able to stand 10 toes down and say to them, I am ready to go toe-to-toe with you. So to you, it's about getting smart on the topic today, yesterday, and to your point, look into the future, such that when you're challenged, you're able to snap back real quick. Because oftentimes people feel if they can silence you, then they've won. But if you can find a way to continue to push your message because you know you've done your homework, you're gonna get much further, maybe not faster, but over time we'll continue to chip away at the challenge that's before us. Then I need you to be messy. What do I mean by messy? Is when you know something needs to be said and no one wants to say it, be the person that says it. And be okay with being the person that says it, because you know in your heart of hearts you've done the hard work to say, I know if you challenge me, whatever you come back to me on with the messiness, I can stand in firm belief that I'm doing the right thing because my heart's in the right place, my disposition's in the right place, and I've done the hard work, witty, of knowing the context in the way that I can challenge. The last one is petty. Be relentless. Be known for the thing you're gonna say and the thing you're gonna push on, and never let it go. Because if we let it go, we're going to continue to see the pendulum swing in the way that this country's got real accustomed to, back to where we've come from. And it's going to take that relentlessness, that understanding that I will not drop this issue until it's no longer an issue, that will get us there. So I would say to this group, let's all be a little witty, let's be messy, and let's be petty.
So before you say the next question, I want to build on this, because he said you have to be willing to know your subject and be able to speak on it. And that has also been a tool to gatekeep people from the conversation on AI. So I want to make sure that you understand that you have a voice in this technology. You do not have to be a researcher. You do not have to be a developer. You do not have to be an academician. You have to know your subject area, because the developer doesn't know anything about what you do. They create technologies that they think are solving for X when they haven't identified Y, Z, A, 1, B. They have no idea of the whole picture of what the model is for. And so feel secure in the conversation with your domain expertise, because that is needed. And that's how we get equity. That's how we get systems that actually work for the communities they're designed for. That's how we get diversity of thought. And that's how we get models that I don't have to come back and redress.
I love where this is going, so I'm going to keep us going that way, even though this is taking us off from our original plan. So Shmona and Lisa, like, I love this idea of speaking to this audience in this room who cared to come and hear about this topic. As you two have navigated the system and pushed to bring the by and for into that system as a way of disruption, what have you leaned on or used? What are some strategies that you have needed as you've done that work?
I'll go ahead and start. I'll start. Strategies that I've leaned on, particularly in this last year. And I just want to appreciate Dr. Waters for what she shared as well, because it made me think about courage, to have the courage to be bold. And of course, Ed just captured that perfectly. So now I've got to deal with petty, messy, and witty for a while in my head. As I think about it, though, I think about the corporate partners who've stood with us, and that many of those corporate partners don't look like Lisa Herring. And so I've leaned into the fact that when I walk in the room versus when they might walk in the room, there's a different response. And let me be clear, I am not suggesting that there isn't power when I walk in a room. What I am suggesting, though, is that when an Apple exec walks in the room, there's a different type of responsiveness to a statement that may come when the PROPEL president walks in. So we lean into that. We lean into those individuals and those agencies who believe that there is agency that is imperative and important within the HBCU ecosystem. That's a strategy. It's critical. The other piece to that, I'll borrow a little bit of what we heard Ed say, and that's, I love the way you defined witty as being the smartest person. And far too often, I think we've had to remind the world how brilliant all of our scholars are who are part of the HBCU ecosystem. So we lean into that, and we lift them, and we put a spotlight on their work or on their institution, right? So we're not having discord amongst ourselves, but especially in this space, that is the AI technology innovation space. And then the other thing that I believe is an imperative strategy is almost a year ago that I sat in a room where Sam Altman was at Clark Atlanta, actually, in a private convening talking about the future of AI. And I was listening to the questions that were asked by many individuals who were already experts in the field. That is not my wheelhouse. I know my wheelhouse. But I was listening for something that I didn't hear. And so I waited till the end and walked up to the very front of the room and said, hey, Sam, I want to ask you a few questions. Because I didn't hear, because we ran out of time, where there are these opportunities for there to be diversity in the development of the work, et cetera. And he was so honest and candid about, and that's still a priority space. But then whether you lean into those who don't look like you, who are willing to stand up, whether you stand up those who are within the HBCU ecosystem that are doing the work, who need to be celebrated, or whether you then challenge the creators to say, what are you doing about it? And how can we be a part of whatever it is that you're doing about it? Because this is a global imperative. Those are strategies. So we seize every moment that we have. We take advantage of every space to say, this is an important work, because you said it so well when you opened up. When you spoke around community and the importance of there being comfort in there being access and equity that everyone has that same. Well, there's something that feels different when everyone has to have that opportunity to have shared power. You either support that or you have some fear about that. And I think that those are critical strategies that come to mind for me in the way that we've been doing this work in this last year.
Great, thank you. Shmona.
Second all of that. And if I could add, like, what's been working for me, so a little bit about Paritii. Like, we are known for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've had to weather the anti-DEI and the mob and, like, all of the people who have a perspective that the work we are doing is somehow detrimental to the development of this country. And so, you know, when all of this came down, I think as someone who leads this organization, you make a decision. Are you going to be concerned, afraid, or are you gonna double down? And like for me, I've really doubled down. Like we decide we are not backing down. And I also wanna just open up the fact that there are a lot of people, people of color, allies, all of that, who are able to drive resources, deliver conversations. I can't sit and be like, oh, woe is us, right? You know, we have Sabrina Williams, you got Common, you got Pharrell, you have leaders, and people are putting money into innovation. And so I also think there's an opportunity to like lean on like where folks are aligned with your message, and we're not out here being like, oh my gosh, I need money from this system, but rather we need like, yeah, right? Like we actually just need to lean on and grow with our communities. And I can say that's been a real source of support. And lastly, like team. Like team is a big one. Like we have to develop the people that we are working with in the areas that matter, ensure that we are agile, multidisciplinary, and able to pivot so that as soon as like things change or we need to move in a different direction, we are ready, right? And we've been able to use that to sort of weather and entrench ourselves very critically in this ed tech market, leveraging artificial intelligence for, you know, our buyers who are our HBCUs and minority serving institutions, recognizing their wealth, their buying power, and their strengths the same way Nike is busy selling shoes. Okay, so I want to say that.
Yes. So we're coming up on the end. I want to give Ed and Dr. Waters a minute to say a closing remark or two about something that you want to leave with this group.
I think I'm here. The title of the session is Innovation by and for How Equity-Centered Technology is Transforming the College Experience. And I think it's done a tremendous amount to transform some college experiences. And I fundamentally believe if we really lean into the by and for, it has the opportunity to close the gap that keeps differential outcomes. For us at the United Negro College Fund, we're fundamentally focused on how can we leverage the opportunity we have with ed tech to do wealth generation. Right now, it is very clear that if you have the resources, you can get the outcomes. If you don't have the resources, we're surprised when you have them. And for HBCUs who have historically not had the resources, but disproportionately better outcomes, our big question is, how do we take the ed tech revolution and do by and for HBCUs that get them to the place where they're doing more with more as opposed to more with less?
And so for me, just as quickly as I can, I think if you're older like I am, you'll remember the Micro Machines man. So when you hear me talk like this, and I'm going to get all my points in and really quick, man, this time, you're going to understand why I'm doing that. So my thing is with ed tech, do not forget the teacher.
Yes.
A lot of this is focused on what happens with the student. If the teacher cannot adopt the technology, the student will not receive it.
That's right.
So you have to make it easy for teachers to be onboarded. You have to help them become knowledgeable of the difference between an educator and a teacher. Use the technology to leverage that. and to help them to lean into catering to the student in the room. If they aren't in the conversation, they can't deploy whatever it is that's come up with. So don't leave out the teacher. Don't leave out the parents. And that's my time.
Wow. Well, as you can tell, each one of these individuals could have spent the whole 40 minutes and we would have been in awe. And so please join me in giving them a round of applause. And please do follow up with each of them. And thank you.